In thatness, I have seen beyond thatness. In company, I have seen the comrade, himself, herself, itself. Living in bondage, I have set myself free. I have broken away from the clutch of all narrowness. And that's the key. Am I contracted or am I open? It's that simple. Kabir says, I have attained the unattainable, and my heart is colored with the color of love. And that's, if I could just evoke that it's here, now, in each and every one of us. There's no exception. And there's certain obscurations that we have come into this incarnation to liberate and see through, and therefore be free from. That's the step I don't see really often until, you finally are just so beat up and so tired and so, knocked around that finally you give it up. Because, making it conscious is halfway there. Opening as love is the fire that burns the obscuration. The Sufis call it the burning field, and that's what they're pointing at. It dissolves. Its function is to dissolve, burn up, free. And you walk away free from it, not managing it, not being a better spiritual person, not needing more meditation, more this, less this, whatever. You're free of it. And I can tell you from my own totally neurotic, whatever you want to call this mind, I don't remember that life anymore. I just don't remember it. It's like another lifetime, like another incarnation. And it wasn't because, I have like the special medicine. It was, partly was just perseverance. I just kept showing up. And part of it, I was so in suffering. And part of it is I didn't want anything else. I just didn't. Now I'm sure no one in this room is as neurotic or whatever as this mind was. I can almost guarantee it. So, hey, it's a piece of cake, sweetheart. And it just gets easier and easier and easier and more grace-filled. And at the same time, life happens. My teacher always says, if you guys think you're just going to sail off into the sunset, nothing's ever bad going to happen, look at Jesus's life, right? There were some real challenges there. So, but the way you perceive and experience the challenges are totally different. That's the deal, right? It's totally different. When I broke my leg and I was flying through space, and you know how time slows down. And I was just literally flying through space, and I knew it was going to be a bad land, right? And the first thing that came, okay, so what's the gift here? And then, the second was be totally, absolutely with it as it is. No fighting, no wanting something different, no trying to escape, no trying to beat myself up or anyone else up. And it, as always, was a gorgeous gift, continues to be an amazing gift. So, life happens. I'll tell you one little story and then we'll do a guided meditation. I was at a retreat. It was a Buddhist retreat, and this guy was giving a talk. And he was saying he was traveling in Thailand, I believe. Where's the real basis of Hinayana yoga? Is it Thailand or Cambodia? But anyway, it was one of those. And he was training, and, it's really hardcore training. And blah, 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 blah. And I don't know whether he had some cannabis with him. I don't quite remember, but he was arrested. And it was a bad deal. So they had him upside down on a rope, and they were beating the bottom of his feet with those split bamboo. And he wakes up and he sees the craziness of it. How in the hell did I end up in Cambodia upside down on, with my feet being beat up? And he starts to laugh. And he just laughs and he laughs and he laughs and he laughs. And the guy beating on him started to laugh and quit and let him down. Now, you can't guarantee that's going to happen. But that's what happened to him. So you never know. It looks like it's a hell realm, and yet something else is happening. And something else is perceiving what's happening. It's not the ego, not a spiritual, nice, dressed up ego perceiving it. It's source itself is perceiving it. And when I got to the hospital, and they were just like angels, and it was chaos. I mean, it was wild. It was a wild ride, And something was just enjoying it, in pain, but, something was enjoying it, and drugged to the max, thank you for all the drugs, I'm just out of it, And so I finally get there, and this guy, we have this little curtain between us, and he's all been, I don't know, a nail machine went off, and he's all beat up, and they're stitching him up, and they're talking. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, and it had nothing to do with Sharon. It had nothing to be a nice spiritual person. Prayers begin to arise and blessing absolutely everyone who was experiencing surgery and broken bones and, terrible pain. And, it was just flowing out and touching literally as the interconnected just woke up. And it was praying and a part of the suffering, but not suffering. And it was amazing. Of course, like I said, I had a lot of drugs, but it was just like, whoa, this is compassion. This is what they're meaning by compassion. There isn't anyone separate from. And because I really have never, I broke my ankle. I was and had 2 kids, I don't have bad accidents and things, or at least I haven't. And so I don't think the compassion had quite broken open to, in that moment, all the people that were suffering of bad injuries to their bodies. It wouldn't have happened, I don't think. And so now that compassion is awake. So using what the younger people say, it's all good. It's all good now. And it is. From that perspective, it's all good. So the guided meditations, those that have sit with me before, sometimes they seem like, oh, wow, they airy, spacey out there, I mean, what do they have to do with my life? But the actuality of them is they are the fundamental foundation of life itself. The ground, the deep, dark, silent ground that arises and expresses itself, the luminosity, the love, the great creatrix. It's who we are. This is like a passing show. This is a blip. It's over in a second. You can't believe how fast this life goes. And till you reach the elder stage, and you go, oh my God, what was I doing? Beating myself up and doing this, and why wasn't I having this great time? Anyway, you do your best. You start now. So it's a transmission of your fundamental nature. And there's no one that is not of that nature. So it's helpful, and if it doesn't mean zip to you, great. Just open up. There's a transmission that's happening. Let it come in and touch the cells. And if you go to sleep, great. I don't know how many experiences I've had giving guided meditations. People snore and go to sleep, and fine, do it. It still gets in there. So whatever you need to do. So there's a unique vibration of this land. And it's like no other vibration in the world. And yet there's a sameness, a common spirit that springs from the land, and that grows on the land, and the birds, and especially the river. And so it's letting the uniqueness kind of come into the body, because the body is a resonating instrument. It knows itself through the senses. And so it's this gorgeous, energetic, brilliant, wise presence that experiences life in form. So by bringing the attention inside of the body and letting it drop into the interior of the body, and using the spine, which is the central channel, using it to let your attention merge and rest inside of the spine. And if it wants to go down into the solar plexus, it wants to drift down into the pelvis, it wants to go below the sacrum, don't control it. It has its own wisdom. And it's absolutely accurate for you, for your uniqueness. So it takes a bit, because the attention is so tuned into looking outside, in front of the body. And so it's almost like just a small direction, not a forcing, or, just a gentle kind of direction of come back and come in side of the central channel, the spinal column, and then drop. And it'll find a place of rest. And in that resting is this unimaginable nourishment, informing the guidance of wisdom itself, that is the well that love arises from. It's not two. One is still, one is dynamic. Everything comes from this. So this simple movement allows you to come home. And it's an intimate at home. It's not something outside or something you have to achieve or make happen or do all this work. None of that is actually true. The most direct possible way of being in life is this simple movement of coming home, inside, and rest. The connection, the support, the guidance, all is present here. It also dissolves, it calls itself back, all of the ideas and the conditionings and everything that we have gathered along the way. It's the great dissolver. It arises from this womb, and it comes back and dies and releases unto this womb of everything. The ground of all potentiality lies here in you, in the body. not separate, not high, not low, not for some and not for others. Those are all the lies. Innocent, but not true. And there's a sense then of, it's just, it's almost like a feeling of curiosity. When you see something, the mind sees something and it goes, oh, I wonder what's there. And so there's that feeling that the attention, though it's resting and it's at peace, it's intimate, it's found its sense of deep contentment. It's just nothing needs to happen other than this. It's whole. And yet there's a kind of a curious quality that just spontaneously happens, and it starts to arise. And so rather than the descent, it ascends. It comes up out of the dark, and it starts to become lighter and more dynamic and brighter. And that's the great luminosity, the great that reflects from that is so still. Reflection doesn't happen there, but it wants to know itself. And so there's a kind of an arising and an expansion and a quality of, it's a palpable quality. So it's helpful at the beginning to stay within the spinal column and then come up out of the crown. But you'll notice very quickly that there is actually no in and no out. That as it starts to arise, and it has kind of for some, perhaps it's just a shine. And it doesn't have to be visual. It's a quality that's experienced even as a sensing or a seeing, or it's very kinetic, it's very palpable. And honor what's true for you. Everyone's wired up in their nervous system just uniquely. So rather than compare or want, just sort of tune in to what's there for you. Actually, the sensing is probably the most accurate. And so it has a quality of shine, this arising, this dynamic quality of stillness. It has a quality of like luminous. You know, if you've been in the Rocky Mountains with the full moon and there's snow, everything fills up with this luminous, gorgeous reflection. So however it reveals itself to you, for some, it actually can come out of the stillness, the darkness, and it starts to arise in this kind of shine. And then as it becomes more dynamic, it's more luminous, and then it becomes like brilliant, and then it becomes the golden radiance of everything. You know, they call it the Christ. And, you know, of course, Jesus was Christed, but many, many, many historically have been these Christed beings, and they all experienced themselves as this golden radiance. And the golden radiance is the interconnectedness that everything lives and dies and expresses itself in and from. And the radiance often is more accessible in the heart, because the heart has never divided itself out. The heart never went into the mental linear concepts, and the heart never really went into that is the empty void, the stillness. It's that all lives and expresses from. It's indivisible. And so by bringing your attention a little bit back behind the heart, and a little bit back behind the back of the chair. And then it just shines through, shines in front of the body, shines to the side of the body, to the left, to the right, to the back, until it's a sphere of this loving, golden, radiant inclusion. It includes and permeates everything. And there is no exception to that. And it has nothing really to do, except it's a very kind of poor reflection or memory of falling in love, right? That's great. We all love to fall in love. But this is so much more and complete and whole and infinite. And falling in love is kind of a romantic love, is kind of a poor imitation of this. And then the cells, because the cells, it's nature. It isn't like the cells, you kind of make something happen. You just evoke it. You call it forth. You ignite it by your attention. And the cells have that same rooted in the fundamental dark ground. And it also has the radiance that arises and pours forth. So then the whole body becomes this radiant being. Every cell wakes up to thine own self, to thy own light be true. That's what was being, evoked, brought forth. We walk around with these broken bodies and they don't feel well and, blah, 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 blah. And yet what actuality has not been brought to the foreground is the radiant body, the radiant being. And then as that radiance fills up every cell within the body and it flows out of the body, it encircles and includes the body, and then it begins to be the radiant sphere, the radiant heart, that everything is included. So you find yourself, you're just taking a little walk and you go outside and you begin to move through this radiance, coming from this radiance, and it all just wakes up. And it isn't some airy-fairy, way out there, untrue reality. Actually, it is the reality. And all of these layers that have been absorbed through time are actually the untruth. They're crystallized images held in time and space, and we carry them around as this burden and dimming the natural radiance of life and being. So the more you can bring the attention back in and rest, you're coming from the body or the ground that all comes from, no exception. And wanting to know itself is a natural, spontaneous movement. And it's like an arising. It's the fountain that arises and pours forth and comes back even greater. If you're kind of bored with, a dinner party and people are talking about, Walmart, then you just become this radiance. And you're sitting at the dinner table and it's arising and pouring forth and arising and pouring forth, and it doesn't matter what the dance is on top of this great body, this great being. You're at home. And it's a contribution. You become a blessing channel. And it isn't because you're a good person, it's just the natural state. The natural state, this radiance. And you could call it love, you could call it compassion, you can call it the great interconnectedness, you can call it whatever is intimate for you. For some, the word God means that. For others, it's the great being. For others, it doesn't really matter. It's just find something that is intimate and meaningful. And so if you're with someone that you really love and are committed to as a life partner, wonderful. This is the best medicine that could ever happen in a relationship. And it isn't like, you just become this mush. It burns, brings up and burns what you are mirroring to one another. And it enhances what you fundamentally are. And whether you find yourself in, a job, or you find yourself in your garden, or you find yourself whatever you're doing, you are this. And it's the same for everyone. There is no arrival, but there does seem to be a deep abiding and resting in it and as it. And it pours out of your eyes, it pours forth from your heart. The solar plexus opens up like the sun. It pours down from the feet into the earth, and even below the earth, because she arises from the same ground. She arises and expresses as this radiant creatrix, the myriad of form. In truth, the earth is the radiant heart. She is the radiant heart. And the key to enter this radiant creative brilliance called the Mother Earth is for you to open to that, for you're the same. And no matter what, anger, hatred, division, projection, delusion, let it arise in this, and it will dissolve and come back to the home ground. And then you become a participating blessing channel, a participating agent that transmutes and transforms. Your life becomes that. Your life is that. It just becomes awake to itself. So just for a period of time here together, this opportunity will never come ever again. Doesn't mean there's not a wonderful location and a group of the Sangha and all of this. Of course, it can happen, can congeal or come together again. But this moment will never happen again. Open to it. Be it. Experience yourself as this. Affirm this truth. And invite all that is not to come home and to dissolve back to the ground it arises from. Free. 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 Now again, the more you can open to the uniqueness of this land, and then open to the soul of this land, which is the river, and then extend and open even greater the great mountain that arises from this island. I mean, what a miracle. And then beyond into the sky realm and beyond, beyond, beyond. Just let go. And yet, it's awake, it's bright, it's aware. There is no limit to this. There is no boundary to this. So whether it's the body, the water, the blessed food, the sky, the clouds, all this radiance, the living presence, and you are that. Take it in. Mind wants to do what mind wants to do. It's just a ripple on the surface of this great being. Arises, falls, arises, falls, arises, falls. This is the practice that dissolves all practices. The living presence. So we can continue to sit if you'd like a little more meditation time. But if you go outside,